Bye, Mark Brown.
Now drink some.
Thank you for telling us the news, Mark Brown. Oh yeah, Russian Stormzy Suicide Squad soldiers refuse orders to return to Ukrainian front lines. So a little bit of background on this. I don't know if we'll include.
Well, no,
this,
the topic isn't on Ukraine anymore. Now it's about Israel.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Now,
you know what? I'm gonna look up something on ECOWAS as well while we're doing this, but
okay,
just because we haven't. What the fuck is happening?
Israel.
So basically, I'll give you guys some background. Russia is now resorting again to hiring penal battalions. So there's a slight difference here. What they were doing before is they were sending Wagner in to recruit. They weren't forcing them. They weren't penal battalions. They were battalions to actually get your freedom. Not the same thing necessarily. It might sound like it, but these men were being forced into it. These men were not willing to go, as far as I know. So, like, let's see.
8 июня, вот остатки перед вами, бригады «Шторм», точнее, короче, роты.
So that's all that's left of their battalion, I guess. The penal battalions are cannon fodder.
Изначально у нас было 150 человек, мы прибыли в зону СВО. После ожесточительных боев, после всего, что мы увидели, вот остатки пацанов, что остались. Среди нас 2 200-х. Нас сегодня привезли с передовой вот в эти апартаменты. Все в интернете видели это видео, это место. Нам не поставлялась БК. Нам не поставлялись ни вода, ни продукты питания. Не вывозились 300-е. До сих пор там гниют 200-е. Их никто просто не забирает. Отдаются ужасные приказы, которых в принципе даже не стоило бы выполнять. Сейчас к нам приехали и сказали: пацаны, надо ехать в приют, наверное, передок. Опять в мясорубку, где мы уже были.
И мы от этого не вернемся.
Суть этого обращения такова. Мы, после чего мы отказываемся дальше.
So Russia is getting desperate, resorting to the penal battalions, but they're also getting desperate. I believe not too long ago they did another round of mobilization. So not full mobilization, I think only partial mobilization. And I believe the Russians are allowing the individual republics, because like they have kind of like states, like Chechnya, they're kind of like states in Russia. They are now able to form their own military organizations to support the Russian effort in Ukraine.
Oh boy.
Well, because now there's the whole from Ragnar.
That won't be a destabilizing force.
It won't. Oh yeah, totally. Now let's hear why they're actually, in fact, no, Ukraine is going to lose.
I think the Palestine-Israel.
Oh god, Temple with Jimmy Dore on the PBD.
Oh, I found gold, brother.
Oh my. Geez.
I found gold.
All right.
It's a different conflict than all the other conflicts, right? So Ukraine, Russia, China, these are all provoked by the United States. And we're, what's happening in Ukraine is just a money laundering operation. And it's there so that we could have more liquefied natural gas from Western countries sold to Europe. And that's why we bombed the Nord Stream pipeline. And, Joe Biden.
I don't know if we actually ever found, look, it's totally up in the air who did it. There's too many parties who have, let's be real reasons to do it. They all have reasons to bomb the Nord Stream pipeline. America having the most reasons, but everybody essentially has a reason. I mean, there's even suspicions that the Russians did it. I mean, there's no proof as of now, or solid enough proof.
Yeah.
I'll check it. We'll check. Maybe Nord Stream pipeline explosion. Did they ever find out who bombed it? No. Who blew it up? 2AGs? No one knows.
Yeah, just it's a question mark.
Everybody's blaming everybody. Some people even think Ukraine might have attacked it as well, which, if I'm being honest, I don't think Ukraine has the... I mean, they do have the Neptune missiles they used to take out, I think it was the Russian battleship, I forgot the name of it, but it was like, they managed to take it out with 2 Neptune missiles. So it's possible. Neptune missiles are, if I remember right, they're like they're what they sound like. They're like water missiles. Yeah. They're Yeah, they're Neptune missiles. They use these to knock out a boat, a big battleship off the coast of Ukraine.
You know, I wonder what Jimmy's stance will be on the Israel conflict.
Oh God, we'll do that next time.
Yeah,
enough.
we'll
I
be
can't
able to
do too much. I can't do two
compare.
Jimmy Dores in one day.
I know. Yeah.
That's too much.
Do it in February, right?
I went off a total tangent there for a moment. Whoa.
Putin has tanks that go across into Ukraine. We're going to end the Nord Stream pipeline. So that's what this was always about, and it was provoked. We provoked Putin to do that. But, you know, what's funny is that everybody.
Russia provoked Russia into doing it. Russia wants more land and more resources, possibly even a buffer state to NATO. Russia wanted it.
Starts the story of Ukraine with Putin's invasion, but the way I tell it, it's like if Putin was standing at a bus stop and there was an old lady in the street and there was a bus coming right for her, and Putin pushed that lady down on the sidewalk to get out of the bus. The mainstream media starts that story. Putin pushes old lady down, and they leave out the beginning. Like, no, there was a bus coming and he was trying to save. So they forget.
Who is he saving Ukraine from? Ukraine.
Yeah,
Look,
how did he save Kyiv? You know, how did he...
Ukraine was a completely unprovoked war. Because let's be real, anybody who's being honest, what threat did Ukraine pose to Russia before the war? Hell, even now, Ukraine doesn't have the ability to reach into Russia. Yeah, it can strike with some of its drones and some of its missiles, but to carry out attacks, it really can't. They have some militias, but they don't have any concentrated military forces. So, like, in before the war especially, when they were an underfunded army using mostly offshoots and leftovers from the 60s, Russia was in no way threatened by Ukraine.
I mean, I guess they would be because they're a fucking paper tiger.
Oh, well.
In that sense.
Well, yeah, you know. When you're scared of your own,
scared of your own shadow.
When you're a house of cards, you know, a stiff wind. But like,
yeah, well, I mean, little did we know how weak Russia really was.
Yeah, like because by all intents and purposes, Russia should have won. Like they should have taken Ukraine.
Well, if nobody supported Ukraine,
no, in the opening invasion, they should have taken the capital.
Okay, yeah,
but they're not a well maintained army. They're big, but they're under maintained.
They leave out the part that in 2014, the United States and the CIA instituted a coup in Ukraine with the right-wing Nazis, and the people in the eastern part of Ukraine didn't want to...
The government shot at protesters during that same exact rally. And of course, nationalists in the far right would be with the protesters because they're nationalists. That just tends to be what happens during a nation seeking its own place in the world. And again, they weren't the majority. The vast majority were normal people. The vast majority of those people were normal people. So again, what is this like? What is it like? Everybody is a nationalist when a country's trying to gain its sovereignty. Damn near. So, what is this statement?
Go along with
I gotta let him talk longer than 5 minutes.
And so they resisted it, and so that coup government, the Nazis, started bombing the Donbass. There actually was a peace agreement called the Minsk Accords. Guess who broke that? The Ukraine. It wasn't Russia. It wasn't Putin.
Both sides broke it.
It wasn't the people of the Donbass. So finally, after 8 years of shelling and 2 peace agreements that were broken,
also Russia broke its own agreement, the one it made when it denuclearized Ukraine. In fact, my co-host here made a great point, but he made the point that Russia's invasion of Ukraine actually sets a very bad precedent for world affairs, because what it says to the world is, don't disarm your nukes, because if you do, the countries with the nukes are going to stomp you.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the Gaddafi problem with Hillary, you know, making a bunch of jokes talking about how we destroyed Gaddafi after he denuclearized.
I mean, look at Iran.
Yeah, no, it just shows that if you do decide to take the peaceful route and give your nuclear arsenal away for the sake of peace, big powers in the world like Russia will just come in and fuck you.
The world that he is advocating for is a far more dangerous and destabilized world. It is a world in which more people are going to die. And for what gain? For what purpose? So Russia can feel secure? Russia is a flagging economy. It's been flagging ever since it dissolved. It's never going to bounce back to its former place in the world. And that's kind of what this is. This is Russia's attempt at gunning for its former place in the world. But like we're seeing how under like here's a good example. Do you know that Russia actually a lot of its like newest BMP-3s have water fording abilities? You can actually make them amphibious. You don't need to make bridges. That is actually something you do in war. You know how the Romans, they were able to build. That's still a modern day military operation. Militaries still to this day in Ukraine have to build bridges while being fucking shot at. And the Russians were supposed to have these tanks that could just skip that whole thing and just go right in. And most of them lack that ability because in order to have amphibious abilities, you need to maintain your tanks. You need to maintain those abilities. So it signals that while Russia's large, that corruption's taking a chunk out of its capability. So I'm just rambling, man.
Ukraine into NATO.
Why does it keep doing
I
that?
don't know.
And Putin said, hey, if you just promise me you won't put them into Ukraine, I won't invade. They wouldn't do that. Why? Because they wanted this to happen. Because they when they ended Afghanistan, they needed a new war for the military-industrial complex. Which is when people were giving Biden all that credit for ending Afghanistan, even though he did it horribly, people were still giving him credit. I was like, well, let's wait and see what he's going to do with that money that they've been spending in Afghanistan, because I bet they have another war up their sleeve, and son of a bitch, they did. It was Ukraine, which they've been ramping up for at least 8 years. And they've admitted that they've been doing this and ramping up and provoking this, and anybody who knows anything about it, this was completely...
I mean, if he was fully controlled by a military-industrial complex, ¿por qué no los dos? You know, why didn't he just keep both the Afghanistan war and the war in Ukraine? And now we have the Israeli conflict with Palestine, where Biden already says he's going to give more money to Israel. Like, if he really was fully just being controlled by a military-industrial complex, and that's the biggest say, why didn't he just keep it? It's not like the last two presidents did anything about it. You know, they didn't end the wars. He could have just kept status quo, and it wouldn't have really meant anything.
There is no party right now that benefits from the war continuing except maybe Ukraine. But that's because the longer the war goes on, the longer they have to regain their territory. That's the only, and even then, like, they're going to pay for that territory for generations. Their country's going to be in so much debt. And something that I think Americans don't remember, just a complete tangent, but I just want to, I made this point talking to a few other people about it before, but I think something that we kind of forget is that when war is on your soil, that part of your country is no longer a factor in your economy, you know?
Yeah.
Like, 20% of your land, territory, factories, and whatever other infrastructure is just gone, sliced, you know? Could you imagine that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they did break past the... Well, actually, we are about to... Let's... I don't want to jump the gun. I'm about to jump the gun.
100% provoked. They wanted this to happen. They ramped up the bombing in February so Putin would invade. They doubled it. So that's what's happening. And the same thing, and if you think Russia and China, we have 800 military bases around the world. We just built 3 more in the Philippines to get ready for this saber rattling with China. And they just built a military base in Syria. As they call Putin a thug and a gangster for doing what he's doing in Ukraine, we are occupying a country right next door, a third of it, which third? The oil part. And we just built a military base there, and that's why they hate Trump, because he told the truth about it. When they asked him, hey, why are you leaving troops there? And he said, for the oil. It's our oil. And they can't...
Why?
We're going to try to skip to the part about the Ukraine winning. Or losing, my bad.
Yeah.
We spend all this money over there when we had a decade of water problems in our own country, but more...
Yeah, okay, but Republicans don't want to put money toward those water problems. And I think this is the really big thing where it's I don't know if the specific word is called a red herring, but we saw this where there was a bill to put more funding toward formula production, right? There was a thing that happened, and the company making formula basically shit the bed. They had problems with the formula. It became... there's something in it that made it bad for consumption for infants, and there was a bill that was saying, like, okay, let's put more funding for formula, and Republicans said no. So when Republicans are, even though Tim Pool says he's a liberal, he seems to, go for the bat for conservatives all the time, and they'll say, oh, well, let's just spend more money at home. They don't vote that way, because when it comes to spending money at home, they say, oh, big government bad, just, fend for yourself against the fucking wolves. And so we see here in this article from the Washington Post that 192 Republicans voted against providing $28 million aid to the FDA to address the shortage of baby formula. So when they bring this stuff up, just know that it's bullshit.
Yeah, like it's such a bullshit tactic, because it's like, yeah, you can gesture at basically anything the government spends its money on and say, well, we should be spending it on the children. Like what? Like anything. You can do that with anything.
Yeah.
Oh, the bailout. Oh, the money we spent on the road, or the money we spent on this plane, or the money we invested over here. Like, come on, man. That's such base level analysis. The government has so much money, and we have like.
And at that point, you know, that's an argument for the Democrats, because they'll give you the money. They'll give everybody funding. Well, maybe not Biden or Pelosi or Schumer, but when you get down the ranks of like AOC or Bernie, you know, Bernie's technically independent. You know, we know he's leaning left.
Yeah,
it's on the left side of the aisle where you're going to get funding for regular people.
I mean, like, the military is always going to get funding. I mean, that's an example of something we always point to. But the fact of it is, it's like, we have planes that can go into fucking space. And not for, like, science. We just have them for, like, recon and possibly, like, maybe aggressive tactics. Or, like, striking, but I don't know for sure. But that's the thing. A lot of it's for recon. Well, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
But they're not going to say they have the fucking God Rod plane. Yeah. Like, you know. But.
Try to hide it.
Yeah.
More importantly, when I pulled up the battle map a couple weeks ago of Ukraine, I was shocked because I wasn't tracking the on-the-ground stuff with Ukraine as much. I was shocked to discover that Russia won, because they've been telling us over and over and over again that we're winning. Russia's decimated. They're conscripting people. They're in panic, and these
they're hiring penal battalions.
Videos of like the Ukrainian soldier flicking the cigarette and being like, "Love Ukraine" or whatever. And then you pull up the battle map and you're like, wait, so Russia secured the entire Donbass land bridge from the Donbass?
Yet they lost giant.
The land bridge into Crimea.
Hold on. You know what? Just because Ukraine, Russian war map, 2022. Let's just see where it was like a year ago. Here you go, March 2022. Wow, it looks like they took a lot of territory back. Huh. Wow. It's like they have all of Donetsk and all of Kherson, and now they have literally half of Donetsk and damn near half of Kherson.
As a small brain person, I'll tell you this: the Dore Kherson is not fully covered anymore.
No, it's not. It looks like Ukraine took back a fuck lot of territory.
Yeah, you see a little cover on the left.
Oh yeah.
You see a little cover.
Kherson used to actually belong to the Russians.
It's more disputed.
It is disputed. I mean, look at the Donetsk.
Yeah.
I mean, they took back a shitload of the Donetsk territories.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's primarily. Oh, actually, here, just look at Kharkiv. There you go. Look at the Kharkiv region.
Yep.
There.
And so the map shows us what? That Trump's going to win by 50 votes again, Tim Pool? You remember that one? Remember you said that Trump's going to have this landslide victory? Yeah, right?
Tell me how Russia's winning. Go on.
Yeah.
Which was their stated goal. So I feel like every story coming out saying we are winning and let's go, and I'm like, Russia wanted to control access to Crimea. It's their access.
Yeah, and they lost every other objective.
To the Mediterranean, through the Black Sea, through the Bosphorus, into the Mediterranean, because they want to. That's how they ship a lot of their oil and gas. And what the threat was to them was that if Ukraine joins NATO and the EU, it cuts off Crimea. Well, first of all, before all this in 2014, before Crimea was basically taken by Russia, and they had a referendum, call it whatever you want. The threat Russia's facing is we have the Sevastopol base. We transport a lot of our energy through here. If Ukraine falls to the EU and NATO, we lose access to the Mediterranean. We can't allow that. So first thing they do, they walk out of their naval base in Sevastopol and say, we're already here actually, quote unquote referendum, take it. With the expansion of the war, they needed to secure access into Crimea outside of just the actual bridge over water, which we saw bombed not that long ago. Now I'm looking at this map and we have it right here. Wow, Russia's secured land access into Crimea, which was my understanding was their stated goal. They're pushing past towards Odessa now, which is insane. And
oh wait, oops. This was back in 22, by the way, but the point still stands. You see how much land, how close they are to the border here? and now even more of this land is taken in this current year. So there's a point to be made that Ukraine actively threatens basically every other land bridge besides the Crimean land bridge, and even then, they do threaten it and bomb it on a very regular basis. So I don't fully understand. Like, they don't actually. It's a pretty precarious position they're in. It's being bombed regularly. The bridge gets knocked out like every other month. So I don't know.
When I talk to neocon types, pro-war establishment types on the left or liberal Democrat, whatever you want to call it.
I hate that characterization because you don't have to be pro-war to be pro-self-defense.
Yeah.
It's such a massive mischaracterization of like the position because you don't have like we invaded Afghanistan and tried to topple its government, trying to find it one dude, and then we took 12 years finding that one guy. This we're trying to help a whole country defend itself so it can exist. We don't even have to send any people there. Like, these wars are not the same. People keep comparing them, but not understanding that just because it's a war doesn't make them the same kind of war. Ukraine is a democracy that's been around for 30 years. That's something that people forget. Ukraine existed before America got there. America didn't build Ukraine like we attempted to build Afghanistan. Ukraine has promise. It's a developing economy. It is one of the largest shippers of grain in Europe. It has massive potential to be a successful contributor to the world economy. So no, this country deserves a chance to exist and fulfill that promise.
They keep saying, no, Vladimir Putin wants Poland. No, Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
And I was like, what strategic value does Vladimir Putin have right now economically? Look, you want to make the argument that Putin's 20-year plan is to invade Poland? Fine. But right now, what we're dealing with...
So then why don't you care about his 20-year plan?
Well, we'll worry about it in 20 years.
Yeah, we'll just worry about that and then just talk about how, it's America going on the offensive for Russia's invasion.
Look, I'm not pro-war, but I want America to defend itself. I want it to assist countries in defending itself. I mean, I think for the first time, our generation actually has a war that is valid in supporting, and we don't even have to put ourselves on the line. Ukrainians want to fight. We should help them. It's like, why is the one time we actually have a war that's justifiable and Americans go, nah, we'll go to Panama, we'll go to Nicaragua, we'll go to Iran, topple its democratically elected government, Afghanistan, destabilize it for the next 30 years, Iraq, that too. Oh, but Ukraine defending itself? Nah! Like, why is it the one time we have a justifiable conflict and we're just like, nah?
Yeah, they just, well, that's simple for you.
It's all of America.
Yeah.
This makes total sense in terms of bringing oil into the Mediterranean, competing with on the oil market, and you telling me that Vladimir Putin is a comic book villain who wants to take over the world means nothing. It says nothing about his strategy, nothing about where he's placing his troops.
It don't have to be. It's not about what he's doing. It's about what he's going to take away. Ukraine is a country with promise. It's a country that should exist. You see, that's the trick where a lot of these people use. Is they ignore the existence of Ukraine. They act like Ukraine is this ephemeral thing. Like, look, if we're being fully honest, the Afghanistan government, the one that we attempted to install, it disappeared within a few weeks of combat with the Taliban. But how long have the Ukrainian army been fighting the Russians? A far, in number, on paper, far superior force. They've been fighting them for years now. So this is not a country that's going to capitulate at the first sign. Like, they're going to fight. They want to be a country. So I guess that's just the trick a lot of these propagandists use. They just pretend Ukraine's just this ephemeral thing when it's not.
When I look at this, I'm like, oh, right. He wants the land bridge into Crimea to secure it so that you can't kick him out. He's gotten it. That seems like a military goal. It seems like Ukraine's lost this one, and we're dumping money down the toilet.
Question.
That's not really the goal. In fact, most military planners realistically, I hate to say it because I know Ukraine wants to prove otherwise, and it can. I actually firmly believe Ukraine can prove otherwise. But the overarching I think the feeling in the air, the wind, is that Ukraine might be able to take back a vast portion of the territory seized in the east. Probably not Crimea. They are doing probing attacks on Crimea. There have been special forces raids on Crimea, successful ones. But it's so far behind the battle line that it's probably not happening. But there is progress being made on that sector. So I'll give you, I'll show you. So this is called the Servalkin line. Recently, Ukrainian, if I'm correct, the Servalkin line is, I'm probably saying that very wrong. Sorry, Eastern European viewers. Know that it's still all love here. Anyway, the Servalkin line is roughly speaking, sorry, I'm trying to cross-reference these. It's roughly like, what would it be, like here? Or here? It's a little hard to tell, but point is, they're making massive progress. The Ukrainian army is actually using those cluster bombs to decent effect. See, that's the problem, is, how does that make you feel? Like, how, because, like, I will fully agree with you, the cluster bombs are horrific, but the fact that they're actually making it possible for Ukraine to take back its territory.
Well, just by looking at the two maps, we see that Ukraine has been taking more territory.
Yeah, they're advancing in the Bakhmut sector.
And to say that, all that money is null, is for nothing, that's not true. Just, if you did a side-by-side comparison of the maps, you'd see that there was ground lost from the Russians and gained by the Ukrainians. So I just, maybe instead of looking at one map, if you looked at multiple maps at a timeline, this like a flow chart, you'd be able to see that there was progress.
Well, that's the thing. It's just like, what are you? I guess that's the thing that is upsetting me. Is like, what are you getting? Yeah. Like, how? What are you getting this from?
He lacks context.
Like, this was just Look at that difference. Look at the top.
Yeah.
Holy shit. What the fuck is Tim Pool talking about? Ukraine is not wasting that money. They're using that money to overwhelmingly great effect.
Yeah.
Question I got for you, Jimmy, is why is it, because no matter where you went, the Democrats all had the Ukrainian flag, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. The other day we're in New York where Yankees game gets canceled. We go to a bowling event. The UN is in New York. Bill Clinton shows up with his
Ukraine
we're
pin.
talking to him, and he's got the Ukraine pin on, right, instead of the red, white, and blue. But why are Democrats now dropping? This is not like a small difference. Right?
Gasp, controversy, scandal.
Yeah, well, let's hear it.
By the way, they went from 81 to 52. Republicans, 56 to 35. Independents, 50. This is not a small number. Why do you think now people are saying, guys, we got to stop?
I think because they're starting to hear counter narratives.
I'll answer it before they start giving their bullshit answers, because the lack of progress from the counteroffensive. Let's be real. There have been some jokes, and I've seen them too, that any day now, right? No, the Ukrainians, at least as far as we understand, have committed 2 attacks. They just haven't made progress. They have made progress recently, again, at the Servalkin line. But for at least a few months, like for a lot of the summer, they weren't making any progress. That's why American support's waning. On top of the fact that we had the Maui fire and we had all these tragedies kind of happen one after the other, it's not a good look when we're also, when Ukraine's also stalling out. So it was just bad timing.
Yeah.
Be fed. Like they're hearing from people like Tucker Carlson, about my show, Rusty Rockets, all.
Oh yeah, Jimmy.
And so it's starting to seep in the truth about what's going on over there, and they see how they don't give a shit about America. So I remember I had Marianne Williamson on my show a month or 2 ago, and she's pro-Ukraine war and funding it. And I was like, why do you think that they're doing that? And she's like, well, we're trying to help the people of Ukraine. I go, if you think this is about helping people, don't you think we'd start helping people here in America first, which is what Tim just said 5 minutes ago? Well, why wouldn't we start here if we really? Of course, they don't care about people. They don't even take care of people.
I'll say this: there's a different baseline. We're not currently being fucking invaded with bombs coming into our buildings, and I feel like that's pretty lower on the baseline, right? Or of course, we want to fix stuff like lead in the water, but if there was missiles coming toward the U.S., we all know that the war machine would be on full gear. All right, like the different baselines.
Jimmy, you've been covering this for decades, so you know for a goddamn fact that the military spends far more money on its yearly upkeep than the money it's donated to Ukraine. So, knowing that as it will, why the fuck target Ukraine when we've had this existing military infrastructure for decades? Like, genuinely act like if it wasn't for Ukraine, Flint, Michigan would be getting its water cleaned. No, it fucking wouldn't. Ukraine has nothing to do with it. Ukraine has nothing to even do with Hawaii and Maui and the support they're getting. Or even with the Palestine, Ohio shit. It has nothing to do with any of that, because at the end of the fucking day, it's... the government has its priorities. Yeah. And a government's priorities are just not the priorities of people. But that's the point, right? That's when Marianne Williamson makes her point when she says, we're doing it to help them. That's true, because Ukraine's going to help itself. Ukraine's going to protect its people. We know that America isn't doing it out of the goodness of its heart, but that is the effect it's having, Jimmy. And why aren't we doing it here? Ask the government that. You really think Ukraine's breaking the bank? No, it's the fact that they don't give a fuck. It's the fact that the people who live in Flint, Michigan, brokey motherfuckers. No offense to you, Flint, Michigan. I love you. That's how the government views you. They don't give a fuck about you. The money was never going to go to you. We could be in peace for the next fucking century and your water will still look like chocolate milk.
In Maui right now, they're nothing. They don't give a shit about them. They got people living under every bridge. Nobody cares. It's not about the people. They wouldn't even give us health care. People still go bankrupt when they get sick in America. The only way.
And if it only wasn't for Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
Western country that happens in. So this is all about money laundering. And why is the numbers going down? I think because people are starting to realize this is stupid, and all the money we're sent, they're starting to get another counter narrative. Bobby Kennedy's out there talking about it, and it's getting talked about on Joe Rogan. And so that's the biggest platform in the world, right? So people are starting to hear a counter narrative before, and now they're starting to get caught up to what the game is happening. That's what I think's happening.
So let me follow up on that. So you saw the GOP debate, the second one that took place, right? And whether it was
I did not.
Oh, you didn't see it? Okay, so Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, a lot of them are still pro funding the Ukrainian war, but if their campaign manager or their helpers are sitting there saying, guys,
you're getting more views than us, man. I can't hate on them that much.
81 to 52, 56 to 35, 57 to 44. This is not a winning, like, what are you doing? The American people are sick of this spending. Why are they still sticking to their position?
Because stability is worth convincing the Americans that it's valuable of maintaining by helping Ukraine. And secondly, the moment Ukraine can show victories on the battlefield, the numbers will go back up.
Look, and if we were just voting in the way that the general American population wants, right? Like if we were a government that just adhered to what the American populace wanted, there wouldn't be Republicans. Because at the end of the day, Democrats are the majority. If we're caring about the majority of Americans here, right? We're saying, like, why are they sticking to the to their guns when the majority might be against it? I mean, make that argument for the next general election, maybe. Yeah. Can we get some give or take here? No.
Yeah, please. To be fair, Trump kind of got in there on the oligarch vote.
Yeah.
On the House, what was it? The educate. What was they called again? The
Electoral College. So, I mean, if we're just talking about politicians following what the American people want, I mean, then there wouldn't be Republicans.
Yeah. You know? And again, like, it's not even that. But I still think Ukraine's like, and I'm not convince saying that the people that it's worth it.
I'm not saying that you should just follow whatever the majority wants. I don't think that's a.
You got to be a leader and try to convince them.
You can find other things that would be good for the majority of people, like universal health care. And, you know, if they were against universal health care, then you could convince them that, the Ukraine war is the right path to go down.
I mean, you know, I know this is kind of a complete tangent, but we've been on this for a while, so we can move on after this, but if you want. But,
probably. It's
been
a long block.
No, I think we squeezed the blood out of the
the main point that, like, you know, if you just look at maps following the timeline,
if you look at the war as it's going, Ukraine has made stunning battlefield victories, and they've gained hundreds of kilometers, and they're still gaining more. So No, the war is not lost, and Ukraine can still achieve victory. Now, will Ukraine gain Crimea? I mean, if we're being realistic, probably not. You know,
Yeah.
I want them to. They might be able. They might stun us. I mean, look at how much they gained on their own. They might stun us again. It's completely possible, but it's such a narrow land bridge to get into Crimea. The amount of men that you would potentially lose trying to attack that tiny fucking land bridge, I don't know. I don't know if Ukraine will be able to sustain that kind of loss. You're talking about, I think the distance was only like a few miles. Like most of the land routes are like 3 to 10 miles wide. You're talking like basically a fish in a barrel situation by land. So it's, but again, like with the victories they achieved, like we're not wasting money on them. They are a promising young democracy and they deserve a chance. And look at what they managed to achieve so far. I think that speaks more than anything that neither us or Tim can say.